table for how all that came about?
Well, I had a nightclub at the time. I had a few, but the one we're talking about now, I opened in the 80s and closed it in 89 because of Pablo's guy. But it was the place to be. Sinatra, D. Martin, Sammy Davis did all my commercials before they did any commercials. Plus, they fraternized it every night. I came up with the idea by living in Vegas. In 1959, I got there. I spent 30 years in Vegas, in and out, you know. But after the second show, which was normally at midnight, there was no place to eat. And I'm a late eater to begin with. So, and I realized why was the culinary unions. They didn't want to have, kitchens and all that. So I built this wonderful place that opened 12 hours a day at 6 at night to 6 in the morning, served gourmet food till 6 in the morning, Russian service, everything's finished at tableside. And it was very elegant, very expensive, but it took off. And it was the place to be. And this one night in particular, October 28, 1989, after my run for 9 years, this gentleman came in, and I called my front door because I used to sit up in the bar in the corner, and we had hardline phones, and I would just pick up. I said, "Who's this guy you put on 7?" Because we rated everybody. So he was a Caesar's Palace casino customer, and he was rated 5. And the guy I was talking to, who now is a star in his own right, was Steve Sharippa. Steve Sharippa was going to UNLV, and I had him as a doorman before his Soprano fame and before even Blue Blood fame. And so I said, "Steve, who is he?" I don't know who he is, but he's got a 5-star rating. I said, "Go load him up." So he bought a bottle of Cristal over, a bottle of Louis XIII, because Caesar's paying when they came in. And so he must have been a big player. And he was giving everybody $100 bills, which I've seen so many nights. Well, he wasn't there 5 or 10 minutes. And there's a whole ruckus with the girl he's with. He breaks the Cristal bottle and sticks it in her face. So now I called Steve. I said, "Steve, get over there." He said, "I ain't going over there, man. That guy's crazy." I said, "Well, that's what I hired you for." None of my guys would go. So I figured, let me go figure it out before this guy wrecks the joint. So I go over there. I said, "I just want to let you know, this is my home you're in." He said, "Who are you?" I said, "I'm Gianni Russo. I'm the owner." "Great." I said, "Well, you got to leave because those sirens you're hearing are coming for you. And I don't want no trouble. I don't know who you're with. I'd rather let the guy go and let me get this girl to the hospital." Thank God he missed her eye with the bottom of the bottle. So now I don't know he still has the bottle in his hand. So he won't step aside. And then he goes for me, and fortunately I'm agile enough. I go back and he slits my throat from ear to ear. But he didn't hit my throat because I was agile. He hit my chin line. But meanwhile, my chin is hanging. We've all gotten cut by shaving, women and men. It bleeds like it's never going to stop. So I had to I was trained in so many ways. I had to change his attitude and get his direction. So I said, look what you did to these shirts. These are Sea Island cotton shirts. I waited 6 months for this shirt. It's blood all over. I just needed time to get my gun. And I always carry, and I put it right in his forehead. I said, "Now I'm giving you one more chance. Get out of here. You're going out in a black bag. This lady needs help." He says, "F you." So I put 2 right between his forehead in front of 150 people. Because I knew this guy was going to take me down. I could feel my hands getting numb already just from my own blood. God knows what's going on with her. He looks at me, and he touches his forehead like he got bit by a mosquito. And I'm looking at this guy and said, "Wait a minute, I know I just shot him in the head." He comes with me, and I put the gun right in his chest. I put the other 3 in his chest. And fortunately, he fell down. Only to find out he was Lorenzo Morales, an underboss to Pablo Escobar in the Medellin cartel. I couldn't have shot the worst guy in the world. This was.
How long did it take to find that out?
The next morning, because I'm very cooperative with the politicians and police departments. So when they finally got there, he was already dead. And I learned a lesson with paramedics and EMTs. They came in And they took care of the most traumatized first. Him, not the girl, not me. So I said, Coots, the detective, I said, Coots, let's take it to, Las Vegas Medical Center is right down the block. So we wrapped her in ice, because I don't want the girl to die, and this guy, I don't know if he was dead or alive. So him and I go out my back door, and we're 2 blocks away from the hospital. And he said, what happened? I said, well, the guy got crazy, stabbed her, slit my throat, because I wanted to get her to the hospital. He said, that's how it came down, Johnny, right? We don't need to worry about it. And I said, no, I got nothing to worry about. In fact, I said, call on the radio, because he had a driver. I said, call on the radio, make sure you book everybody that's seen it. Let's get this and straighten it out now. Long story short, we get there. Lois Manis, her name was. They stitched her up. Me being vain, they got a guy in the emergency room. I said, oh, wait a minute, you ain't doing anything. Let's pack this up. And I called my plastic surgeon that I knew in Beverly Hills to come in. So Elias Ghanem, who was Elvis's doctor at the time in Vegas, he heard about it. Everybody knew it. And he came over and he attended to me until the doctor, Murray Parks got there and stitched me up. I have no scar.
Wow.
That's how nuts I am. But then I got the bad news the next day of who he was. And he was a Marilito. I said, what's a Marilito? So Coots had a specialist in Colombian, all that voodoo bullshit. And he said, they're going to kill your friends, dogs, family, and let you suffer before they get you. And I'm saying, what the hell? So now I fly into New York because I happen to be a hot and cold friend of John Gotti. And John liked me and did like me. So I knew if anybody can get me in to see him, he says, you're going to go there? And it's all over the news. Even when I got to the Ravenite in Mulberry Street, he said, oh, the killer, the tough guy. I said, I'm no tough guy. I said, they're going to kill my kids and family. I said, I got to get to see him. I think he only arranged it because he wanted to get rid of me anyway. He thought once I got there, I'd never get back. But I had to end it because I didn't want nobody to get hurt over a situation. And when most of your people read the book, they'll understand I had a lot of priors and I had, experience in so many ways with death before. So I get there and they have me, I meet him in a church, which I felt very comfortable because I'm very religious. And there was only one guy at the altar when I got into the church. It was in the middle of the afternoon. So as I'm walking, the pews are creaking and people are sitting up with rifles. By the time I got to the front of the church, he had 50 of his men in there. And I said, Mr. Escobar, is you Gianni Russo? I said, yeah. That's all I remember. I got hit from the back. Next thing I wake up, I don't know how many hours later, I'm in a torture chamber 3 stories below the prison he built for himself in Bogota. And the stench of the body bags and everything else, that's where they tortured and killed everybody. And I don't know how long I was there, but hours later, there's this clean dressed guy standing in front of me. I'm only seeing, his crotch down because I'm shackled to this chair. And it was Pablo Escobar. And in his hand, he had the book, The Making of the Godfather. And he said to me, why didn't you tell me you were Carlo? I love that movie. Clean him up and bring him up to the house. This has gone on in my life so many times. When I met Saddam Hussein, you name the people that I met, world leaders. They loved this movie.
Wow.
So now I'm having dinner with Pablo Escobar in his house. I don't know how many hours later, they bathed me, they gave me some medicine. Because I really couldn't walk. I mean, they were destroying my lower body. And he said, why did you come here? I said, Mr. Escobar, I did my homework. You have a daughter the same age as my daughter. If somebody was going to kill your daughter, and you're responsible for it, what would you do? I had to come here. And he got up, I don't know if he was going to kill me, and gave me a hug. He said, you're a real man. He said, I'll straighten this out for you. He said, but before you go, could you do me a favor? I said, yeah, you want me to cut the grass? What do you want me to do? Clean your car? He said, no, I want to do the closing scene of The Godfather. And I'm saying to myself, uh-oh. I read everything about this guy. He was a maniac. Well, you must know how insane he is. And everybody, even to today, said, how did you get away with this? This guy kills people. And then asked why they're there. So I said, why do you want to do this scene? He said, I love this scene. I said, what scene? He said, when you and Michael, when Michael comes to your house and confronts you. I said, okay. You want me to write it down? He said, no, I know it. Now I'm really saying, uh-oh, this is how they're going to take me out. So he gets up, he goes to the door with a couple of his men, and he walks in, and he says to me, you got to answer for Santino, Carlo. And you do this whole scene. And he gives me the airline ticket. I'm going to die today. This is it. They walk me out to a car. He walks me out, opens the door. Instead of only Clemenza in the back, he has two other guys in the back and a guy driving. They're going to take me to the airport, supposedly. And I get in. As soon as they sit down, they say, hello, Carlo. And they all bust out laughing. He opens the door, gives me a hug and a kiss. He says, get out of here. I'll straighten out. That's unbelievable story.
That is absolutely classic. Now, what was his aura like, Pablo Escobar? What was his presence like?
You can't read him because he's being so nice, and I know how he's a pit bull. And I'm saying, why? And then when he asked that, I figured that's why. He's supposed to have some fun with me and show his power to all his men, and then just kill me. But thank God he didn't.
Yeah, because he watched The Godfather over and over again.
Oh, you know that?
Yeah, as a kid, as a younger person, he was accused of adopting the mannerisms of The Godfather.
I know.
Yeah, and it was one of his all-time favorite movies.
Thank God it saved me.
Unbelievable.
I didn't do Mary Poppins.
So, you said when you went into the church then, he was burning his fingers or something.
Fingertips. It was some kind. I never saw a saint like that. In the right-hand corner of the church was the Blessed Mother, but it was on a globe of the world, and she had her hands down, and people out of the burning of hell were trying to reach her. And he, when I got there, started smelling flesh, and on a candle, he was rolling his fingers over it. And I'm saying to myself, had some kind of maybe it was a mental thing with him, pain over power. He studied a lot of things, but you know that. I mean, this guy.
One of the things they did was they would burn the fingertips to get rid of fingerprints.
Right.
Yeah, so that could be a possibility as well.
Right.
And you said when they tortured you, they were whacking you in the balls?
Yeah, they had a thing like the knights had. It was on a chain, but on the end of the chain was like maybe like the size of a softball, and there was no seat on the chair. So my rectum and my balls was like, I didn't walk right for a long time. It was like crazy. And after going through polio, I knew how to, adjust to all that because my right side of my body has always been stronger. My left side of my body was paralyzed for 5 years. So to me, it was like reliving all of this all over again. But thank God I got out of there.
Did you recognize any of his more famous hitmen like Popeye, El Chapo, Mugre?
I knew El Chapo, yeah. I met him that day, and then I got to know him and his son now. They had El Chapo at MCC here, you know that.
Oh, El Chapo. I mean El Chapo, who was one of Pablo's hitmen. But yeah, El Chapo. We'll get your El Chapo story in a minute. So on the journey home, then, the police stop you, don't they?
No, they put me on the plane. When I landed in Florida, the suits got on the plane, like in the movies. And prior to landing, as we were rolling to the staircase on the tarmac, and I thought that was strange. They said, please stay seated. Some people have to come on board. So they come on, and they pick up the intercom. They says, Gianni Russo on this plane, which they knew I was. So I raised my hand. They can't even put handcuffs on me. And they're telling me nothing. They're taking me off. They had a jet on the tarmac. It was the DEA. So they're flying me to Washington. Unbeknownst to me, I knew they were watching John Gotti on Mulberry Street. So they had me there. They had me with Noriega in the Dominican Republic. And then they had me at Pablo Escobar's house for 2 or 3 days. The guy's leaving. So they must have think, this must be the new drug lord of the new connection. how naive they were. Because when I wanted to go to the bathroom, I said, "Can I go to the bathroom?" They said, "Yeah." I said, "Can you take these handcuffs on me?" So they looked at each other and said, "Oh, go ahead." And the guy walks me to the door, and he's standing outside, and I come out, and he says to me, "You were calling The Godfather, right?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay. So now what?" So we walked me back, and they said, "What were you doing with these people?" I said, and then the guy in command said, "Don't even talk until we get to the office." I said, "Do you have any idea why I went there?" They said, "We have a lot of ideas why you went there." I said, "Do you realize I killed one of his guys in Vegas?" They didn't even know it because that's a state thing. Then they get on a computer and they figure out, and then they realized what they thought. That's not why I was there. I never had a traffic ticket. So then they take me and do fingerprint me and all of that. And then I wasted an hour with them. And they said, "You can go." "I'm in D.C." I said, "I'm in D.C." "Well, we don't provide transportation." I couldn't believe it. I'm saying that was the worst 5 days of my life.
So were there any repercussions for whacking the guy in your joint?
No, he took care of it all.
Well, open and shut case with the law enforcement because
Oh, yeah, it was justifiable homicide. That was my third one. Because, in the hospital ward, I killed a pedophile in self-defense. But the last judge I was in front of, he's Mr. Russo. "I don't care what you do. You kill one more person, and you can't open your shirt, and there's a big S on your chest, and you have a cape, you're going to jail."
What is the story behind you killing the pedophile?
Well, Dolores Barone, who was Carlo Gambino's niece, was a candy striper when I got to the hospital. So he told her, "Take care of that kid from the neighborhood." So he used to bring me the extra Jell-O at night. And the most important thing, she gave me a hug at the end of the night, which I needed. I was isolated. I'm 6.5 years of age at the time. And I was lonely, obviously. So as I matured, I was a good-looking kid as a kid. And she said, "Watch out for Harold Gardner." I said, "Who's Harold Gardner?" He says, "He's a physical therapist, and they may assign him to you, but watch him." See, and the only privacy we had in the hospital was the curtains drawn off from around the ceiling. I was in a 20-bed ward, isolation ward, quarantine, polio. And once you had some power, which I had because my right hand, my whole right side was good, they wouldn't give you a bedpan anymore. They encouraged you to get out of bed. You crawl out of the bed and then crawl to the side rails and go to the bathrooms. Well, as time went on, one night I'm going to the bathroom and there's like a porter's broom that they use in the theaters or the little rooms. And for some reason, with my right arm, I put it under my left arm and just held it till I got to the stall because I couldn't stand at a urinal yet. And I broke the end of the broom off. And I wasn't in no rush to go back to my bed. I've been there 24 hours a day. So as I was sitting there, I used to say the rosary and pray a lot. And I filed the top of the broom in the grout of the floor tile to make a weapon out of it. Don't ask me why. It was about 3 feet long. And the radiator was hung on the wall. So I always went to stall 4, and I put the broom back there, and nobody ever found it. Every time I went to the bathroom, even if somebody was in stall 4, I'd lean against the sink and wait for them to go. This one night, she warned me about Harold coming. And I see white shoes below the curtain at the stall. And he's trying to open it. I'm holding it with my right hand. I said, "I'll be right out. If you need, I'll be right out." "No, no, no. I want to see how you're doing." I said, "I'm doing okay." And then and he jerks the curtain open, and he closes the curtain behind him. Now he's standing right in my face. And he unbuttons his fly, and he's trying to convince me, he was a black man, that his penis was a Tootsie Roll. And he didn't realize I had my broom on the floor at my right hand. So he's standing with me, and he's trying to force himself in me, in my mouth. And I pick up the stick, because he was, paying no attention to what I was doing. And my arm, my left arm, I used it just as a guide. And I laid the stick on it, and I drove it right under his rib cage. God must have aimed it right. It went right down his back, because my upper body for 4 years, that's all I've been doing is dragging around. Well, he was running around the bathroom, spraying the whole white tiles, which is such a dramatic scene. Next, Dolores comes running in, throws a blanket over me, and they take me up to the psych ward. So I went to the 7th floor for 72 hours, and they said, he can go. Because they didn't want nobody to know that was so under the curtain, how many people were being abused by this guy. They let me go. So they wanted to call for my mother and father or somebody to pick me up. I said, Dolores, I don't want nobody to come. I said, you just take me down and put me in a cab. And she did. I said, I'll get you the money back. And I went back to the neighborhood, which was 30 blocks down the street. And I went to my grandfather's friend, Magnati's Bakery, and I wound up staying there for a year and a half. But I was making the bread, which was good for me, with the 50-pound bags of Underboss. It was like exercise and dynamic tension than kneading the dough. But what was more beneficial was the wood-burning ovens. There was no humidity. So even at my age, I have no arthritis, no rheumatism. My whole left side of my body. I mean, the last kid that I kept in touch with, he just passed. Most of them never got their mobility back. And I have to say one thing, John. I have no physical problems. None.
Wow, that's fantastic.
No, it's amazing.
How old were you then when that situation happened?
12. I was 12 years old.
Did you have like nightmares or anything about it?
I had nightmares about the hospital, not about that. I think, because I always was wondering why when he went to these kids in my ward and they closed the drape, it was moaning and crying. I thought he was hurting them. He was, but not in therapy. So I always justify, even like Lorenzo Morales, this guy's selling drugs to kids. I had no remorse at all. I mean, to me, I said this to Pope John Paul when I got very close to him. And he said, how do you rectify all the injustice you've done? I said, Papa, I did no injustices. He said, how's that? He said, I'm a disciple of the Lord. He said, you're a disciple of the Lord. I said, I read the Bible like you do. It used to be an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. I'm trying to avenge these pedophiles and people, drug dealers, and eliminate what they're doing, destroying people with a lesser mind than you and I have. And he gave me this piece in 1984. I don't know if you could see it on camera. And I embellished it, obviously. It was just too small for me. So I made it. And then he became a saint. And my grandchildren say, Papa, you're the only guy that knows a saint. He's Saint Paul. It's amazing.
Yeah, so that guy definitely had a killing coming. Did you say there was one other situation where someone died or two others?
No, Harold, him, and one other.
Could you give us the other one then, please?
Yeah, I got into a situation with a bunch of guys, and they shot me. And then, as they thought I was dead, I shot the guy that shot me.
What was the situation you got into?
I have to mention names.
Okay, yeah, we don't want to do that. No.
Mob associated.
And did you have to go to court for that one?
No.
Okay. All right,
I called it in. I was in
right.
I called it in. They came. They took me down. They brought me to the hospital. Then when they realized the guy was shot, they thanked me.
And have you been shot?
I was shot so far 6 times, stabbed, my throat slit, as we know, and thrown out a window. And I'm here.
What was the story about you getting thrown out the window?
I have another problem. They thought most people don't like me, especially mob guys, because I'm really not a mob guy. I'm not connected to anybody. I was taken in by Frank Costello during the Kennedy elections and all that. I was traveling the world handing out envelopes to Carlos Basales, Corky Sabella, while they were trying to, stimulate people backing John F. Kennedy, Senator John F. Kennedy, to become president. And nobody thought a Catholic president would have become Catholic president. Then I took my last trip with a suitcase to Dallas. Somebody picked me up and took me about 80 miles out to a ranch. And I got back in the car and flew home. And 2 days later, Lyndon Baines Johnson announced he's the running mate to John F. Kennedy because they needed Texas in the South. It was wild.
Do you have a theory on who killed Kennedy?
I'll tell you who killed him. It wasn't Lee Harvey Oswald. It was Johnny Roselli, Chicago shooter. They had 3 shooters. New York wanted a shooter. New Orleans wanted a shooter because they weren't going to count on somebody. And Chicago had Johnny Roselli. Johnny Roselli, and I don't know if you know these names, and Santo Trafficante were brought in by the CIA. They were training them to kill Fidel Castro. Because most people don't know the deal the mob made with Joe Kennedy, if his son became president, they would invade Cuba and they would get their casinos back. The mistake John made was make his brother Bobby attorney general. He hated the mob. He hated all his father's friends, but they didn't know that. And the mob was getting really out of patience of when they're going to invade. So they were coming up with these theories to take him out, and then Batista would give them back all their properties. But that was already a year or 2 in, and that's when my last meeting with Marilyn Monroe, which was a close friend of mine for 4 years, I was at Cal Neva as the eyes and ears for Frank Costello with Sam Giancana. Sinatra was there. They brought Marilyn in. Robert showed up. John didn't. He was supposed to because they knew they were having it. And Joe, the old man, Kennedy, already had a stroke because they sent a message. We're going to start killing off your sons if you don't invade Cuba. Get your younger son straightened out. So what Sam Giancana's theory was, like they did with J. Edgar Hoover, they were going to blackmail him. They set up J. Edgar Hoover years ago as a cross-dresser, and they had all the film on it. So they all had a fancy for Marilyn Monroe. John promised Marilyn if he became president, he was going to leave Jackie, that's how naive she was, and marry her. So Bobby was consoling her. I don't know if the world knows this. As Bobby was consoling her, he impregnated her and convinced her to get an abortion. So when Sinatra said, you got to do us one more favor, your room is set up with cameras, induce Robert to come tonight. So we have him. Now here's a Catholic boy. I think he had 6 or 7 kids already, attorney general. They would have him. She went screaming. I will never see those guys again. They destroyed me because we didn't know that she was emotionally deranged after getting an abortion. So I'm going to the press. I'm telling them, I'm going to disgrace these guys. They're done. And we knew when she said that, she left. She called Joe DiMaggio, because I'm close to her. She called Joe DiMaggio, who was in San Francisco. And most people don't know Cal Neva is on the borderline of California and Nevada. That's how it's got its name. So you can enter on the California side, and most people didn't know you were there. And they had all these cabins all around. She calls Joe. Joe calls Sinatra. He said, what's going on? She wants me to come and get her. He's mind your own business. Don't come. Because what the world didn't know, Sam Giancana gave Sinatra 30 days to get this straightened out, or they're going to kill him too. Because he said he could control JFK. And obviously he didn't. Well, he controlled JFK, but not Bobby. Bobby was getting everybody locked up. But Johnny Russo